The room went silent the moment the child spoke her name, like something inside the old church hall had been cut loose and left hanging in the air. Mourners stood shoulder to shoulder, frozen mid-breath, as the boy near the front bench looked straight at Evelyn without fear or hesitation. "Evelyn Grace Mercer," he said softly, as if repeating something he had already said 100 times before. A few people shifted, uncomfortable, confused. Evelyn felt her stomach tighten. "That is not my name," she said immediately, too sharp, too fast. The boy blinked once. "Yes, it is. Your father said you would come when the ground got quiet." A low ripple of whispers moved through the room like wind through dry grass. Evelyn stepped forward, heels pressing into old wood that creaked under her weight. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice lower now but shaking at the edges. The child tilted his head and lifted something hanging from a thin string around his neck. A rusted sheriff badge, dark with age and dirt, but still recognizable enough to make Evelyn's breath stop. Martha pushed through the crowd behind her. "No," she said quickly, almost too quickly. "Do not listen to him." But her eyes were locked on the badge. Evelyn turned slightly. "You know what that is," she said. Martha did not answer. The child answered instead. "I found it in the well behind the red house." Evelyn froze harder this time. "There is no well there anymore," she said. The boy's voice stayed calm. "You sealed it." "Not me." The preacher tried to speak but his words fell apart halfway. "This is not right," he said, but no one was listening anymore. Evelyn stared at the child, her hands trembling now as memory pressed against her like something trying to surface through water. "What is your name?" she asked again, softer. "Samuel," he said. "Just Samuel." "Where are your parents?" Martha demanded, stepping forward. The boy did not look at her. "Your father did not drown," he said suddenly, and the entire room seemed to lean back from the words. Evelyn felt a cold pull in her chest. No one outside her family had ever questioned that story. No one had ever spoken it out loud like this. She stepped closer to Samuel until she was standing right in front of him. "Give me that badge," she said. He did not move. Instead, he held it tighter. "He gave it to me." "She did not," he said. The sentence made no sense but still felt like truth. Martha grabbed Evelyn's arm. "Evelyn, stop this." But Evelyn pulled away. "Where is the well?" she asked the child. Samuel finally moved, pointing toward the exit like he had been waiting for that question all along. The room behind them remained silent, heavy with confusion and fear. Someone whispered that they should call someone, but no one moved. Evelyn looked at Martha one last time, searching for something familiar, but found only avoidance. The child stepped past them both without hesitation. "This way," he said. And as he walked toward the door, Evelyn felt something long buried inside her begin to shift, like a locked memory finally finding its crack in the dark. Outside the church door, the wind pressed against them like a warning that had been waiting years to be heard. Evelyn paused for a second, staring at the boy walking ahead as if the path was already known. Martha whispered behind her that this was madness, that they should stop, but Evelyn could not feel certainty in anything except the weight of that rusted badge and the name that should not have been spoken at all now. The child did not stop walking after the church steps, and that alone made Evelyn feel something deeply wrong settling into her chest. Samuel moved like he already knew where the ground would break and where it would hold. Evelyn followed, slower now, the noise of the mourners fading behind them until it became only wind and distant murmurs. Martha stayed close, uneasy, watching the boy like he might vanish or change shape if she looked away too long. Evelyn broke the silence first. "Where did you really get that badge?" she asked. Samuel didn't turn around. "I told you. The well." Martha scoffed under her breath. "There is no well." Samuel stopped walking for the first time. "Then you didn't look hard enough." Evelyn stepped closer, her voice tightening. "That well was sealed before you were born." The boy finally turned his head slightly. "Sealed things still breathe." Martha grabbed Evelyn's arm again, firmer this time. "Evelyn, this is not real. He is a child." Evelyn didn't look at her. "Then explain the badge." Martha hesitated. That badge was lost. Years ago. Everyone thought it was gone. Samuel spoke again, calm and precise. It didn't get lost. It got taken down. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Taken by who? The boy looked at her now fully. By the ground that remembers. They reached the edge of the dirt road where the church view disappeared behind them. The wind felt heavier here, like it carried something older than weather. Evelyn's phone buzzed in her pocket, but she ignored it. Samuel pointed ahead without warning. The red house is still standing. Martha shook her head quickly. No one lives there. It should be falling apart. It is falling apart, Samuel said. Just not fast enough. Evelyn felt a strange pull in her stomach, like something inside her was responding before her mind could catch up. She remembered the house in fragments. A porch that creaked too loudly. A window that never fully closed. A smell of damp wood after rain. She stopped walking for a moment. Why do I remember that? She whispered. Martha stiffened. You shouldn't. Samuel turned slightly as if listening to something no one else could hear. You all remember it. You just agreed not to. Evelyn looked at him sharply. What are you talking about? The boy answered without hesitation. Your father didn't fall into water. He was dragged into it. Martha's face went pale. Stop. Do not say that. Samuel didn't stop. He saw something he wasn't supposed to see. Evelyn stepped forward now, anger mixing with fear. What did he see? Samuel looked at her directly. The woman in the well. Silence hit again, sharper than before. Martha laughed once, but it broke halfway. That is not real. There is no woman. Evelyn turned to her. Then why are you shaking? Martha didn't answer. Samuel started walking again. You are wasting time. It is still open. Evelyn followed immediately. Open? She asked. The boy nodded. Not the way you think. Martha hesitated, then followed reluctantly, her voice low. Evelyn, if you go back there, you will not like what you remember. Evelyn didn't slow down. I already don't like what I remember. The road narrowed as they moved further from town. Trees closed in slightly, forming a broken corridor of shadow and dust. Samuel walked in the center like he belonged there more than anywhere else. Evelyn studied him now, really studied him. His confidence didn't match his age. It felt practiced, like repetition instead of instinct. She finally spoke again. Samuel, how old are you really? The boy didn't answer immediately. 7. But his voice didn't sound 7. It sounded certain. Martha muttered behind them. This is wrong. This is all wrong. Samuel stopped again and pointed. There. Ahead, half hidden behind dry brush and collapsing fencing, stood a structure barely holding its shape. The red house. Or what was left of it. The paint had peeled into dull scars, and the porch leaned like it was tired of standing. Evelyn felt her breath tighten as if her body recognized it before her mind allowed it. Samuel spoke quietly. Now you go inside. Evelyn didn't move. Why me? The boy looked up at her. Because you already did once. And this time you will remember it properly. The truck engine rattled unevenly as they left the road behind, moving deeper into silence than Evelyn remembered ever choosing. The old vehicle bounced over uneven dirt, each turn pulling the past closer instead of further away. Samuel sat between Evelyn and Martha in the back seat, completely still, eyes forward like he had no interest in the world outside except the direction they were going. Evelyn broke the silence first. You've been there before, haven't you? She said. Samuel didn't look at her. Yes. Martha turned sharply. That is impossible. The boy answered flat. Not for me. Evelyn leaned forward slightly. Who took you there? Samuel paused. No one took me. I was already there. Martha let out a frustrated breath. This is insane. We should turn around. Evelyn didn't respond. She couldn't. The road ahead felt too familiar already. Trees leaned in closer, forming broken shadows across the windshield. Samuel finally spoke again, quieter now. Your father used to stop here. Evelyn looked at him. Here where? The boy pointed toward a split in the road. Right before the house. Evelyn's grip tightened on the steering wheel. I never told you that, she said. Samuel didn't answer immediately. You didn't have to. Martha leaned forward now, voice sharp. Evelyn, stop listening to him. He is a child. Evelyn snapped back without looking away from the road. Then explain why he knows this. Silence again. The truck hit a rough patch, shaking them slightly. Samuel continued as if nothing had interrupted him. Your father didn't like the cellar. Martha's face tightened instantly. Stop talking about him. The boy ignored her. He said there was something breathing under it. Evelyn felt her chest tighten. What do you mean breathing? Samuel finally turned his head toward her. Like it was waiting. The truck slowed as the trees opened slightly, revealing broken fencing and overgrown land ahead. Martha shook her head. None of this is real. None of it. Samuel spoke again, calm and direct. You say that because you didn't go down. Evelyn's voice dropped. Down where? The boy pointed forward. Under the house. Evelyn felt something in her stomach twist, not fear exactly, but recognition she couldn't place. The truck rolled to a stop without her fully deciding to stop it. They all sat there for a moment, engine ticking, heat fading. Martha was the first to move. This is a mistake. We should leave. Evelyn opened her door instead. Samuel stepped out immediately after her. He didn't wait or hesitate. Martha followed reluctantly, watching every step like the ground might shift. The air outside felt heavier, stiller, like it had been unused for a long time. Ahead, beyond the broken fence line, the shape of the old house stood half-collapsed in the distance. Martha whispered. It should not still be standing. Samuel didn't look at her. It doesn't stay dead, just quiet. Evelyn took a step forward. The ground creaked under her boot. She stopped for a second, staring at the house. Why are we really here? She asked quietly. Samuel answered without looking back. Because you buried something you didn't finish remembering. Martha shook her head again. Evelyn, we are leaving. Now. But Evelyn didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on the house as if it had already noticed her. And behind her, Samuel spoke one last line before walking ahead. You already opened the door once. Now you just have to see what stayed behind it. The truck door slammed shut behind them, but the sound felt delayed, like even metal was hesitant to speak near the house. Evelyn stood still for a moment, staring at what remained of it. The structure leaned inward on itself, wood-warped and tired, like it had been holding a secret for too long. Samuel didn't hesitate. He walked straight toward it. Evelyn called out. Wait. He didn't stop. Martha stayed back near the truck, arms folded tight. This is a mistake, she said again, quieter now. Evelyn didn't answer. She followed instead. The ground shifted slightly under their steps as they crossed the broken yard. Grass grew uneven, patches of dirt exposed like old wounds. Samuel stopped at the edge of the porch. Right here, he said. Evelyn looked down. Nothing looked special. Just old wood and rot. What is here? She asked. Samuel pointed without blinking. Under. Martha let out a sharp breath. Absolutely not. Evelyn crouched slowly, brushing away dirt. The wood felt loose beneath her fingers. Samuel stepped closer and knelt beside her. You don't need to break it, he said. It is already broken. Evelyn pulled at one board. It gave too easily. A hollow sound answered from beneath. She paused. Martha's voice rose behind them. Evelyn, stop. We are not doing this. But Evelyn kept pulling. The board cracked and lifted. A dark gap opened underneath the porch. A cold smell rose from it. Damp stone and old water. Samuel leaned forward like he recognized it. It's deeper than before, he said quietly. Martha stepped closer now despite herself. What is that supposed to mean? The boy didn't answer. Evelyn grabbed a lantern from the truck and clicked it on. The light dropped into the space below. Wooden supports, dirt walls, and something carved into the ground leading down. A narrow shaft. A ladder, half-rotted, disappearing into blackness. Martha shook her head violently. No. No, no, no. We are leaving. This is how people disappear. Evelyn didn't look at her. She was staring into the hole. Samuel stood beside her. He has been waiting longer than you think, he said. Evelyn's voice was low. Who? The boy looked at her. Your father. A silence dropped instantly. Martha stepped forward, grabbing Evelyn's shoulder. Don't you dare listen to this. Evelyn pulled away. I need to see. Martha snapped. No, you don't. You need to leave. Samuel was already at the edge of the opening. I will go first, he said. Evelyn stopped him. No. I will. Martha's voice broke slightly. Evelyn, please. You don't even know what this is. Evelyn looked at her sister. Then tell me. Martha didn't answer. Evelyn lowered herself onto the ladder. The wood groaned under her weight. Above her, Samuel watched without fear. Martha stayed back, frozen. The descent felt longer than it should have been. The air grew colder fast, pressing against her skin like wet cloth. Halfway down, Evelyn stopped. The lantern swung slightly, revealing scratched marks along the wall. Not random. Repeated lines. Like someone had been counting. Samuel's voice came from above. Don't stop there. Evelyn looked up. How do you know this place? The boy didn't hesitate. Because I've seen it from the other side. That answer made no sense. And somehow made too much sense at once. Evelyn continued down. The ladder ended into a narrow chamber. She stepped off carefully. The floor was uneven stone. The air smelled older here, like something that had stopped breathing a long time ago. She raised the lantern. A metal box sat against the wall. Rusted shut but intact. Nearby, scattered papers wrapped in cloth. Burn marks along the edges. And something else. A second sheriff badge. Her hand trembled as she picked it up. This one was heavier. Real. Not rusted the same way as the one Samuel had. Above her, Martha's voice echoed down. Evelyn, what do you see? Evelyn didn't answer immediately. She opened the metal box instead. Inside were letters. Folded carefully. Old ink. Faded names. One name repeated again and again at the top of every page. Clara. And from above, Samuel spoke softly as if confirming something already known. That's her name. Evelyn's grip tightened on the letters. Who is Clara? She asked. A pause. Then Samuel answered. My grandmother. Evelyn didn't realize how long she had been staring at the letters until the lantern light flickered and Martha's voice broke through from above, distant and strained. Evelyn, what do you see down there? The words echoed in the narrow space, bouncing off stone and old dirt. Evelyn didn't answer right away. Her hands were already shaking, not from fear alone, but from recognition she couldn't place yet. Samuel's voice followed, softer but closer than it should have been. Keep going. Evelyn looked up through the shaft. The boy was leaning over the edge now, watching her without blinking. How are you even seeing this? She asked. Samuel didn't hesitate. Because I remember it differently. That answer made her chest tighten. Martha's voice came again, sharper now. Evelyn, come up right now. This is enough. But Evelyn's eyes had already moved back to the chamber. The letters felt heavier than paper should. She unfolded one slowly. The handwriting was uneven but careful. Clara. The name again and again like a pulse she couldn't stop reading. Evelyn whispered it under her breath. Who was this woman? Samuel answered instantly. She was here before you. Evelyn turned slightly. Before me how? The boy didn't look away from her. She worked in your house. That house. Evelyn felt something shift inside her memory, but it refused to form clearly. Martha's voice dropped lower now, more controlled. Evelyn, please. Do not read anything else. But Evelyn was already reading. Clara wrote about mornings in the kitchen. About cleaning mud from boots that belonged to men who never spoke kindly. About a man who watched her too long. Evelyn's throat tightened as she read the name without meaning to. Her father. No, she whispered. Samuel stepped closer to the edge above her. Yes. Martha's voice cracked now. Stop saying that. Stop it. But Samuel continued like she wasn't there. He told her to stay quiet. That no one would believe her anyway. Evelyn's breath hitched. That is not true, she said automatically, but it sounded weaker than she intended. The letters didn't stop. Clara wrote about fear becoming normal. About a pregnancy she couldn't hide forever. About promises made in rooms that smelled like whiskey and authority. Evelyn's knees almost gave slightly, but she caught herself against the stone wall. Above her, Martha suddenly went silent. That silence was worse. Evelyn looked up again. Martha was still there, but her face had changed. Not denial anymore. Something closer to memory trying to surface. You knew, Evelyn said quietly. Martha shook her head, but too slowly. I suspected. Evelyn let out a short, broken laugh. Suspected. That's what you call this? Samuel's voice cut in again. She tried to leave. Evelyn looked at him sharply. Clara. The boy nodded. They didn't let her. The chamber suddenly felt smaller. The air heavier. Evelyn reached for the second object in the box. The sheriff badge. She turned it over in her hand. It was her father's. Not a question anymore. A fact sitting too long in the dark. Martha finally spoke again, but her voice was different now. Evelyn, I was young. I didn't understand everything. Evelyn looked up at her slowly. You understood enough. Silence again. Samuel crouched at the edge above, his tone still calm but now quieter. He didn't drown. Evelyn froze. What? The boy repeated it. Your father. He didn't drown. Martha closed her eyes like she had been waiting for that exact sentence her entire life. Evelyn stood slowly, gripping the letters tighter. Then what happened? Samuel answered simply. He went looking for her. Evelyn felt something inside her split open. For Clara, she said. Samuel nodded once. And didn't come back the same way. The lantern flickered again. The chamber felt suddenly colder, like the story itself had changed temperature. Evelyn looked at the ladder. The way up seemed farther now than it should. And behind her, the letters in her hand felt less like paper and more like something that had been waiting to be found. Evelyn climbed out of the shaft slower than she went in, like the weight of what she had heard was pulling her back down. Her boots scraped against the ladder, each step louder in the tight space above her. Martha reached down instinctively when Evelyn's hand appeared, pulling her up without words. Samuel stood a few steps back, watching like he already knew what she had seen. Evelyn didn't speak at first. She just stood there on the broken floor under the porch, holding the letters too tightly. Martha broke the silence. "Tell me what is in there." Evelyn looked at her, then at Samuel, then back at the paper in her hand. "Truth," she said finally. "Too much of it." Martha shook her head. "That does not mean anything." Evelyn unfolded one of the letters again, forcing her voice steady. "It means our father was not who you said he was." Martha's face tightened instantly. "Do not start that." Evelyn stepped closer. "Then explain the name Clara." Samuel answered before Martha could. She already did. Evelyn turned sharply toward him. "You stay out of this." But the boy didn't move. "Clara worked in your house," he said again, like repeating something carved into him. "She cleaned, she cooked, she was invisible until she wasn't." Martha's hands clenched. "This is not new. People always make stories about the past." Evelyn cut her off. "This is not a story." She held up another letter. "Clara wrote about being watched. About your father entering rooms without knocking. About silence that followed her everywhere." Evelyn's voice cracked slightly as she read. "About being told no one would believe her." Martha looked away. "That was a different time," she said weakly. Evelyn stepped closer. "A different time does not excuse this." Samuel spoke again, quieter now. "She tried to leave." Evelyn froze. "Leave where?" The boy looked toward the open yard beyond the porch. "Away from here." "Away from him." Silence dropped again. Even the wind outside felt like it had stopped moving. Evelyn lowered the letters slowly. "She was pregnant," she said, not a question. Martha didn't respond. That was enough. Samuel nodded once. "Yes." Evelyn felt something cold move through her chest. "And then what?" The boy hesitated only slightly. "They said she ran away." Martha finally spoke, voice tight. "That is what happened." Samuel shook his head. "That is what they wanted said." Evelyn looked at Martha now fully. "You knew," she said. Martha's eyes filled with frustration and something else buried deeper. "I heard things. Rumors. Nothing I could prove." Evelyn laughed once, sharp and broken. "You heard a woman disappear and called it nothing." Martha stepped forward. "Evelyn, I was young. I didn't have power." Evelyn's voice rose slightly. "But you had silence. And you used it." Samuel interrupted again, calm but firm. "She did not disappear alone." Evelyn turned back to him slowly. "What does that mean?" The boy looked at the ground for a moment. Then he said it simply. "She was taken to the well." Martha shook her head fast. "No. That is not true." Samuel didn't react. "That is where she ended." Evelyn felt the room tilt slightly. The well. Again. Everything came back to that word. She looked down at the letters again. Clara's handwriting seemed almost alive under the dim light. One line stood out more than the others. "If something happens to me, remember I did not leave." Evelyn whispered it under her breath. "She did not leave." Samuel nodded. "She didn't." Martha stepped back now, as if distance could undo what she was hearing. "This is madness," she said quietly. "There was no well like that. Not one that could hold anything like this." Samuel looked at her directly. "You sealed it." Martha flinched. "I was a child." The boy didn't argue. "But you helped." Silence again. Heavier this time. Evelyn looked between them both. "So my father knew," she said slowly. "He knew what happened to her." Samuel answered immediately. He saw it. Evelyn's breath caught. And still. The boy finished the sentence for her. And still he tried to speak. Martha shook her head, almost whispering now. That is not how it ended. Samuel tilted his head slightly. It is how it started. Evelyn stepped back a little, the letters shaking in her hand now. Everything she had believed about her father, about the ground she grew up on, felt suddenly thin, like it could tear if she pressed it too hard. She looked at the dark opening under the porch again. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was discovering something new. She felt like she was remembering something that had been buried on purpose. The barn looked smaller from inside than it should have, like the walls had folded in over time just to avoid telling the truth. Evelyn stepped carefully over broken boards, the lantern light cutting through dust that hung in the air like it had been waiting years for someone to disturb it. Martha followed behind her silently now, and even she didn't argue anymore. Samuel walked ahead without hesitation, as if the ground here recognized him. Dig here, he said suddenly. Evelyn stopped. Here where, she asked. Samuel pointed to a section of floor that looked no different from the rest. Right here. Martha shook her head immediately. No. We are not doing this. This is a barn. It is nothing. Samuel didn't react to her voice. He just looked at Evelyn. You already know something is under it. Evelyn felt her chest tighten again. She did know. Or something inside her did. She stepped forward and knelt. The wood felt softer here, weaker. Martha grabbed her arm. Evelyn, stop. Please. This is where you stop. Evelyn looked at her sister for a long moment. You knew too much already, she said quietly. Martha didn't answer. Evelyn pulled her arm free and started breaking the boards with her hands. It didn't take long. The wood gave way too easily, like it had been waiting for this moment. A hollow space opened beneath. A smell rose immediately. Burnt, old, trapped. Martha stepped back. Oh no, she whispered. Evelyn lowered the lantern into the gap. Bones first. Small fragments, buried in ash and dirt. Then cloth. Then something heavier wrapped in faded fabric. A ring of metal glinted weakly under the light. Samuel spoke quietly behind her. She didn't leave. Evelyn didn't look up. Clara. The boy nodded. She stayed here. Martha shook her head again, but it wasn't denial anymore. It was collapse. That is not possible, she said softly. We burned this place. Evelyn turned slightly. You burned what? Martha hesitated. The house. The barn. Everything that could connect back. Samuel crouched closer to the opening. You didn't burn everything, he said. Just what was visible. Evelyn's hands trembled as she reached into the hole carefully. She pulled out the fabric. It fell apart instantly in her fingers. Inside was a wedding ring, simple, worn. No inscription visible anymore, just metal shaped by time and pressure. Martha took a step forward without thinking. That is not hers, she said weakly. Evelyn looked at her. Then whose is it? Silence. Samuel answered instead. It is hers. Evelyn stood slowly now. Clara is buried here, she said. Samuel nodded. Yes. Martha suddenly covered her mouth. That means, she started, then stopped. Evelyn finished it for her. That means she did not run. No one responded. The barn felt colder now, even with the lantern burning bright. Evelyn looked around slowly. This place had been standing over her entire life without her knowing what it was hiding. Samuel stood again. He looked almost tired now, but not surprised. Your father tried to stop it, he said. Evelyn looked at him sharply. Stop what? Samuel answered simply. What they did to her. Martha let out a broken breath. He tried, she said quietly, like it hurt to admit. Samuel nodded once. And then they stopped him. Evelyn turned fully toward Martha now. Who? Martha didn't answer immediately. Her voice came out low, fragile. The sheriff. The judge. The men who owned everything that mattered. Evelyn's grip tightened around the ring. So they killed him. Martha closed her eyes. Yes. The word hit the barn harder than anything else had. Evelyn stepped back slightly. And you let me believe he drowned. Martha looked at her. I was 16. Evelyn's voice rose. You let me bury him in water instead of truth. Samuel interrupted quietly again. He didn't go in water. Evelyn turned to him. Then where? The boy looked at the dark hole again. They put him where she was. Silence fell again, deeper this time. Evelyn felt something inside her shift. Not grief anymore. Something sharper. Anger without direction finally finding shape. She looked at the barn, at the ash, at the bones beneath her feet. Then at Martha. Then at Samuel. And she realized nothing in her life had ever been clean. Not memory. Not loss. Not even death. And still, something had survived all of it long enough to be waiting here. The silence after the barn felt different now, heavier in a way that wasn't just grief anymore. It felt like something had finally been named. Evelyn stood outside with ash still clinging faintly to her hands, watching Martha pace in small tight circles like her body couldn't decide whether to run or collapse. Samuel stood still, again, as if motion itself was optional for him. Martha broke first. This is not real, she said, voice sharp but shaking underneath. People do not do this. Fathers do not become this. Evelyn didn't look at her. Then what do they become? Martha stopped pacing. She looked toward the ground instead. Evelyn pressed her. Tell me. Martha swallowed hard. They become part of systems. They become deals. Agreements. Things you don't question if you want to survive. Evelyn let out a short laugh that had no humor in it. Survive what exactly? Samuel answered before Martha could. Silence. Both women turned toward him. He continued calmly. That is what killed him. Not water. Evelyn's expression changed slightly. Not understanding, but narrowing into focus. Say it clearly, she said. Samuel nodded once. Your father did not drown. He was brought out of the house alive. And then he was taken where the truth was already buried. Martha's voice cracked. Stop. Please stop saying it like that. Samuel ignored her. The sheriff at the time. The judge. Men who made decisions before people spoke them out loud. They decided Clara was already gone. So your father became a problem. Evelyn felt her stomach tighten again. And they solved it, she said quietly. Samuel nodded. Yes. Martha suddenly stepped forward, anger breaking through fear. You don't understand what you are saying. These are not things you just put into words. Samuel looked at her directly. You already lived them. That made her freeze. Evelyn turned slightly toward Martha now. You told me he drowned, she said. All these years. Martha shook her head fast. That is what I was told. That is what everyone was told. Evelyn's voice sharpened. And you believed it. Martha hesitated. I needed to. Silence fell again, but this time it didn't feel empty. It felt full. Samuel walked a few steps closer to Evelyn. He spoke softer now. He went to the well because he thought she might still be there. Clara. He thought if he found her, everything would stop. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. And instead, Samuel finished it. He found what they built over her instead. Martha whispered. No one builds something like that without reason. Evelyn opened her eyes again. Then whose reason was it? Martha didn't answer. The wind shifted slightly through the empty field, brushing against broken grass and old wood. It sounded too normal for what they were saying. Samuel looked toward the direction of the house again. They didn't just hide her, he said. They made sure no one would ever look again. Evelyn felt something settle inside her. Not calm. Direction. So the story was not an accident, she said. Samuel shook his head. It was control. Martha finally spoke again, barely audible. If you dig this up, you don't get answers. You get consequences. Evelyn turned toward her fully now. I already have answers, she said. I just didn't have names. Samuel nodded slowly at that. Evelyn looked between them both. Then her voice lowered. What happens now? Samuel answered simply. Now they notice. Martha went still. That is the part you don't understand. Evelyn didn't flinch. I understand enough. Samuel looked at her for a long moment, then turned slightly toward the road behind them. They will come, he said. Evelyn asked quietly. Who? But Samuel didn't answer that. Because somewhere beyond the broken land and burnt history, something had already started moving back toward them. The first headlights appeared like a mistake in the distance, too steady to be random, too deliberate to be anything but searching. Evelyn noticed them before anyone spoke. The glow cut across the broken land near the barn, sliding over ash and grass like it already knew where to stop. Samuel turned his head slightly. They are early, he said. Martha stiffened immediately. Who is they? Evelyn didn't answer. She was already watching the lights grow stronger. 3 vehicles came into view, moving slow, not rushed. Controlled. The kind of arrival that did not ask permission. Dust lifted behind them in thin lines. They stopped near the edge of the field without hesitation. Doors opened. Men stepped out with flashlights already on. Evelyn felt something inside her tighten, not fear exactly, but recognition of pattern. Authority had a shape, and it had just arrived. The sheriff was the first to speak. His voice carried without effort. You are on restricted land. Martha stepped forward quickly. This is private. The sheriff ignored her. His eyes were already on Evelyn. Especially her hands. He saw the letters immediately. Where did you find those, he asked. Evelyn didn't move. Under a barn, she said. A pause. Then one of the deputies shifted slightly closer, flashlight angling down toward the ash still clinging to Evelyn's sleeves. The sheriff spoke again, slower this time. That property has been closed for years. Samuel answered from behind Evelyn. Not closed. Just covered. The sheriff finally looked at him. And you are? Samuel didn't hesitate. I am the part you missed. A faint tension moved through the group of men. Not visible fear. Something older. Awareness. Martha stepped closer to Evelyn, whispering urgently. Do not engage them. Just stay quiet. Evelyn whispered back. Quiet already cost too much. The sheriff stepped forward now. That child needs to be taken somewhere safe. Samuel tilted his head slightly. Safe is where things disappear. The sheriff's jaw tightened. Watch your tone. Evelyn finally spoke directly to him. You already know what is in those letters. That stopped him for half a second. Then he recovered. Whatever you think you found, it is not your place to interpret history. Evelyn laughed once, short and sharp. It is my family. The sheriff looked at her again, more focused now. Mercer. Martha flinched slightly at the name. Evelyn saw it. So did the sheriff. He took one step forward. That name carries weight here. Evelyn's voice dropped. So does silence. A deputy shifted his stance, hand near his belt. Samuel spoke again, calm but cutting. You were there. The sheriff looked at him sharply. What did you say? Samuel didn't blink. When she was taken. The air changed immediately. One of the deputies raised his flashlight slightly higher. Martha stepped in fast. Enough. This is a misunderstanding. We are leaving. The sheriff didn't take his eyes off Evelyn. That child is speaking things he should not know. Evelyn replied. Then explain how he knows them. No one answered. The wind moved again through the field, but it felt smaller now, contained by the circle of people standing in it. The sheriff finally said, lower than before. Whatever you have found, it stops here. Evelyn's expression hardened. No. A beat of silence. Then the sheriff stepped closer again. You do not understand what reopening this means. Evelyn looked at him directly. I understand what closing it meant. That landed harder than anything else in the conversation. Samuel stepped forward now, just slightly. They are already noticing. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. Who is they? Samuel answered simply. The ones who agreed to forget. Martha whispered. Evelyn, please. But Evelyn didn't move. Neither did Samuel. The sheriff signaled slightly with his hand. One of the deputies shifted position, blocking the truck behind them. Control reasserting itself. Evelyn noticed. So did Samuel. He looked up at her. Now they decide what you are allowed to keep. Evelyn tightened her grip on the letters. And for the first time since all of this began, she didn't step back. Neither did they. The fire started small, almost careful, like it didn't want to be seen doing what it was about to do. Evelyn held the stack of letters in her hands for a long time before she lowered them into the pit Martha had made near the edge of the field. The sheriff and his men stood farther back now, not gone, just waiting in a different way. Samuel watched without blinking. Martha broke the silence first. You don't have to burn them, she said quickly. That is evidence. That is proof. Evelyn didn't look at her. I don't need proof anymore. The wind shifted slightly, brushing against the paper edges. Evelyn lit the corner herself. The flame caught slowly at first, then climbed fast. Ink curled into darkness. Names disappeared one by one. Martha stepped forward again. Evelyn, please. Once they are gone, you cannot. Evelyn interrupted her without raising her voice. I can remember. That stopped Martha mid-step. The sheriff called out from behind them. This is a mistake. You are destroying legal material. Evelyn finally turned her head toward him. Legal, she repeated. You want to use that word now. Samuel spoke quietly beside her. She wanted to be remembered. The fire grew brighter. The letters bent inward as if reacting to heat like pressure finally released. Martha's voice broke slightly. I did not know what else to do back then. Evelyn looked at her sister for a long moment. That was always the problem, she said. No one ever knew what to do except stay quiet. The fire cracked louder. One of the deputies stepped forward slightly, then stopped when the sheriff lifted his hand. Control was still there. But it was thinning. Evelyn reached into her pocket and pulled out the sheriff badge. The second one from the underground chamber. She held it up for a moment. This belonged to my father, she said. The sheriff didn't respond. Evelyn continued. And you let him become a story instead of a person. Martha whispered. Evelyn, don't. But Evelyn didn't stop. He didn't drown, she said. You made that up because it was easier than saying what really happened. The fire consumed the last of the paper stack. Ash lifted into the air, carried upward without direction. Samuel spoke again, calm as always. She is quieter now. Evelyn looked at him. Clara. The boy nodded once. She can stop being carried now. That phrase landed differently. Not like information. Like closure that didn't feel like relief. Martha sank slightly into herself. So what happens now? She asked quietly. Evelyn answered without hesitation. Now it ends. The sheriff finally stepped forward again. Nothing ends here without consequence. Evelyn turned toward him fully. Everything already ended here. You just didn't call it that. Silence followed again, but it wasn't empty. It was loaded with decisions no one had officially made yet. Samuel looked past them toward the road. They are still coming, he said. The sheriff frowned. Who? Samuel didn't answer directly. Just more of them. Evelyn watched the fire settle into glowing ash. The letters were gone now. No longer objects. Just remnants. Martha spoke softly. What do we do now? Evelyn looked at her sister for a long time. Not anger this time. Something closer to exhaustion. We stop pretending, she said. The sheriff took another step forward. You are making this worse for yourselves. Evelyn laughed once, quietly. Worse than what? That question didn't get answered. A distant sound came from the road again. Another engine. Then another. Samuel turned slightly. Told you. The sheriff's expression changed slightly. He wasn't surprised. Just recalculating. Evelyn noticed that too. Martha whispered. Evelyn, we should go. Evelyn didn't move yet. Where? Samuel answered simply. Away from here. Evelyn looked at the burning remains one last time. Not the letters anymore. Just ash and heat and absence. Then she turned toward Samuel. And what happens to them, she asked, nodding toward the sheriff and his men. Samuel paused. Then he said something that didn't sound like threat. It sounded like truth. They stay with it. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then she stepped back from the fire.